Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, what to watch for in the Maryland General Assembly. As Hispanic gang violence surges in Montgomery County, the county executive and council double down on sanctuary county status. And President Obama's final State of the Union message, a roadmap for the future or a speech from an out-of-touch president. Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of the Montgomery County branch of the NAACP, Henry Hailstock. Former membership director for the Maryland Republican Party, Phil Bell. A past candidate for Republican for the County Council, Robin Uncapher. And past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. The 2016 session of the Maryland General Assembly opened this week, and oh my, what a difference a year can make. At the beginning of 2015, there was a built-in anticipation as to how the newly elected Republican Governor Larry Hogan would govern. There was also an unease in the Democratic-controlled Assembly over the message that voters had delivered by electing the second Republican governor in only 12 years. This year, the political détente was over well before the session began, with both Senate Majority Leader Mike Miller and the Speaker of the House, Mike Bush, vowing to take on the fiscally conservative Hogan. One key signal as to whether or not they are intent on doing so is whether the General Assembly will vote to override the governor's vetoes of key bills that were passed at the end of the last legislative session, those dealing with the public use of marijuana, voters' rights for felons, and taxes charged to online hotel booking companies. Henry, it's no surprise that the governor and the legislature are at odds over spending, but the governor seems to have great public support to continue his programs. What areas of contention will there be in the upcoming session?
Well, I'm going to divide it up into two things. First, the Baltimore issue. Workforce training is for one. Legislation is coming down for that. Also, improving education is some legislation that's putting in there. Hogan is, to me, not enforcing or improving funding for that educational issue there, and also dealing with the Baltimore plight that's in the city. Then I look at social issues, such as the legislation is coming down that will require employers to pay for sick leave, and also employers being responsible for setting up retirement plans for their workers. And let's not forget the fence riding that Hogan had for legalizing assisted suicide.
Well, Phil, this doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of compromise here, because the governor has promised to restore some education funding, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be enough to satisfy the Democrats in the General Assembly.
Well, there probably will be nothing that satisfies the Democrats in the General Assembly aside from having a Democrat in the governor's office. However, what will be interesting to see, aside from the education funding piece, will just be how Governor Hogan approaches this overall. He does have a wave of popularity thanks to his cancer surviving that and having such a good session last time. But the key is, just like with Governor Christie in New Jersey, to capitalize in year two and make sure that continues throughout the rest of his term.
You know, Elbridge, Henry brought up about the Baltimore riots, and the riots in Baltimore were shocking to the state and to the country. What programs, if any, will address the multi-layer problems of the city? After all, you know, there's been Democratic control over Baltimore City for the last 60 years. What can you expect to be done in 1 year?
No offense, but we were blind to what was happening in Baltimore, and that's why Baltimore
Well, whose
occurred.
fault is that?
That's every one of our citizens and every one of our legislative and governmental leaders. But to answer your question, Henry had first mentioned about the Workforce Development Act, and those acts that really hit the citizens the ability to have better housing, better job training, and better education. My concern is the governor going to put the same amount of money into those programs as he's putting into the rehabbing of the housing and the urban renewal. He's putting almost more than $750 million into infrastructure in terms of the housing and the blighted areas. But how can the people in Baltimore who are jobless right now be able to afford that new housing coming along. You need to have a balanced approach to allow the citizens to stay where they are, get job training, get jobs, not sort of be on the social welfare dole as every one of us here don't want, but become good, proper citizens.
But
Robin,
Elbridge,
I got to go to Robin, and then I'll come back to you, Phil. Robin, this is an election year, and many members of the General Assembly are running for federal office. So is there going to get anything done in this session?
Oh, probably not. But I think that they are really in denial about having a Republican governor. There seems to be, this guy won the election, people, hello. He's speaking about basic problems that affect Marylanders. And the Democrats are not paying attention to that. They're just totally in denial. Well, can he possibly do anything? Of course he can, because he's talking about what he was talking about before, which is if this state doesn't get back on its feet economically, all of these great things that you'd like to do to pay for are not going to happen.
We're talking about tax cuts.
yeah.
How can you have tax cuts when we're really just getting out of the woods?
Well, well, he is doing something. He's adopting the Democratic tax relief thing.
The earned income tax credit.
Yes, that's it.
Well, that's
and
just-
that
that's
I don't
just
think it's
one-
a compromise. I think, as he said, now he did say, no matter where the idea comes, if it's a good idea, he will cross the aisle.
But it supports his tax reform program. But
right.
the fact is, there's still millions and millions of dollars of unfunded mandates that are coming from this General Assembly, as well as the pension problem. He's going to address that. Phil.
Yeah, and the earned income tax credit's one of the few areas I do disagree with Governor Hogan on, because that, along with the job training piece and whatever else we've discussed, sounds like to me just another version of welfare. And I have to ask why, when you gave such an eloquent speech about the problems in Baltimore City being the problems of the citizens not paying attention, they have the ability, thanks to the technology of the internet and everything else at their disposal, to build a great city there on their own. Why are we looking to government to help when government has helped for over 60 years and it's helped Baltimore City into a morass?
Well, see, you're dealing with some issues that I have problems with as far as when you say help. You know, it's one thing to throw things at the people for them to get better. It's another thing to manage those things so that they will get better.
But
and I lived through about 4 or 5 of these programs that were thrown at the people and not managed to people correctly. And that's the problem. That's the big issue that we need to address. Not just throw it to them, but deal with it in a constructive way so that they can live.
They are the people.
But if
they
you look,
are the ones to help themselves.
but if you look at what they're trying to do with this earned tax program, it's putting money back. So what's going to happen? They're going to pay off their bills. They're going to spend money in their community, which will further help that community to grow. That's the biggest thing.
I think what Phil is bringing up, and I think this is what frustrates a lot of Marylanders, is that they feel that the taxpayers have been supporting Baltimore City. They've been putting money into Baltimore City. That funding comes from Montgomery County and the wealthier suburbs into Baltimore City, and nothing ever gets accomplished.
But a lot of that money went into the Inner Harbor and some of those activities.
No, that's true. That is true.
The Inner Harbor was built 25 years ago.
But fine, it went into the stadium renewals and all the other programs. Ask former Mayor Kurt Schmote. This past year,
let's ask former Mayor Martin O'Malley. Let's ask former Mayor Kurt Schmote. Let's ask all these former mayors what the hell they've done with the city of Baltimore. Nothing.
Women. We grassroots Democrats really want to hold our previous governor and some of these other Democratic governors to task with regard to.
You say that, but you never do.
You won't unless you elect somebody from another party. That's the only reason. It's
All
like
right,
anything else.
I'm afraid we got to wrap this up and go on to our next topic. Otherwise, we're going to be we could talk about this for 2 days. All right, last week, in response to deportation raids being conducted by the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement Service, Montgomery County Executive Isaiah Leggett and the Montgomery County Council issued a rare joint response stating that local police officers will not assist in such efforts. In contrast, the chairman of the Prince William County of Virginia Board of Supervisors, Corey Stewart, responded, "If Montgomery County wants illegal aliens or committing crimes, we'll be happy to encourage them to move there." Elbridge, Montgomery County has been a sanctuary county, and this has been playing out for 15 years. Why did the county feel like they had to make this grand statement that they weren't going to support deportation?
Because facts support when you have a government that is supportive of its citizens and residents to be able to work with the police and the community officials, you can cut crime. The problem is that he's lumping the criminal element with
immigration.
The good folks that in fact are trying to be Americans and what the American dream stands for. So you have to be able to separate the bad from the good. And if you don't have an open government that allows them to come in and talk with the police, then in fact you get no cooperation. And it's been proven in Virginia that in fact you have crime coming up.
All right, I got to go to Henry. Henry, locally there have been two instances, one in Montgomery County and one in Alexandria County, where gang members of MS-13, the El Salvadorian criminal cartel, have murdered people. Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy has acknowledged that this gang, MS-13, is increasing its activity in Montgomery County after being almost out of the county 2 years ago. Is the approach being taken by the executive and the council the correct one?
Well, I can't say that it is the correct one. They need to step up. If you remember, early 2000, we went on a rampage to capture the leaders and some of the members of these gangs, not just MS-13, but other gangs as well.
Right.
And it seemed to work out. That's why you haven't heard anything until recently. They should have kept that pace, but now they need to step it up and bring back that full force in doing so.
But you
Right,
need to hear from the citizens, and if they don't have trust in government, you won't hear from those folks.
I want to go to Phil on this, because in the Montgomery County case and the Alexandria case, neither the alleged criminals or the victims were in the country legally. So are we following the right approach?
Absolutely not. I will stoke the controversy a little bit more by saying it, but I'm going to say it because it's true. When Donald Trump said they have to go, they have to go. There's no question about it. If we're starting from the standpoint that people are here illegally, they start by not obeying the laws, then what incentive do they have to follow any of the other laws? And this just shows, and I'm very surprised at some of the conversations we've had here, that we have to be welcoming, but how can you be welcoming of so-called good people when so-called good people aren't willing to follow any of the laws of the state? But if I decide I'd like to go 55 miles per hour down Frederick Road, well, then I need to actually follow the laws of the state. That doesn't make sense, and it's doubly terrible when we have people actually dying because of this.
Robin, yesterday there was an accident in Laurel where an illegal alien, wanted in connection with a 2014 DUI. He's been on the run since 2014, was involved in a traffic accident, and he killed 2 more people. So is this the right approach?
Well, you know, the Mexicans have an American right now who killed 4 people in a traffic accident and fled to Mexico. I don't think they're that thrilled to have him. But the truth of the matter is, we fought a civil war over whether or not the federal government makes the major decisions. And that means that, you know, if Tacoma Park wants to have its own foreign policy, no. And that means that Maryland doesn't get to have its own immigration policy. We have to follow what the other states do because, you know, we have a Congress and we have a president. And, you know, I think that they love this kind of sanctimonious stuff because you get to avoid what are the real problems in Maryland. You get to talk about, you know, all of this kind of stupid stuff, and you're not talking about what the real boring problems are, like is the bus coming or not.
Elbridge, here's the conundrum that we have. We don't know who some of these characters are that are in the country. So how does having a non-confrontation policy from the police help that?
It helps with, in fact, because it allows those who are not committing crimes, the majority of our non-documented residents who are not committing crime, to feel comfortable to talk to the police about when they are getting harassed. You mentioned
they're not coming out.
Oh, we don't know that. You cannot say that. And you mentioned earlier, this is same race on same race crime. You cannot get information to the police unless the police are able to talk to that community. The police cannot talk to that community if they believe they're going to be deported. In fact, there is a problem. Now, on the other point, the fact is that this is not a national state, the nation of Maryland. Montgomery County has said the fact is that whereas they will not help ICE, in fact, they won't impede ICE from coming in and doing the arrest that they need to do. And so there's a difference between breaking a law and just not being told
The
to
fact
order.
they're
But
making
Elbridge,
this
will you
statement,
stand
the
up
fact they're
for-
making this statement is absolutely not that. They are specifically saying that they are not cooperating with the federal government. They are making a big thing about it. And it makes them look so sanctimonious and so good. We're better than the federal government.
The only
we're
thing that
wrap
they're
it up
not,
here, Henry.
the only thing that they're not cooperating with is not allowing their police to go around and pick out people to say you're illegal. That's the only thing they're doing. And they're not going to do that, both in the sheriff and Montgomery
Right,
County
but
Police
it-
Department. But the biggest thing is that we need to understand we're separate. You need to separate this. You have good people and bad people.
Yes.
Everywhere. All right? Now, we need to fix a system so that it will not be a problem for some of these people. Now, yes, you got some bad mixed up with the good, but that's everywhere. But we need to have a system to weed them out and move them out.
We got to wrap it up. We got one more topic
Okay.
before the end of the night. And when we come back, we're going to discuss that topic, and our panel is going to give you their opinion about President Obama's final State of the Union message. Stay tuned.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
And welcome back. President Barack Obama delivered his final State of the Union address to the Congress and the nation this past Tuesday. And for many, it was a return to the optimistic rhetoric that candidate Obama delivered as he inspired many to vote for him in 2008. To others, it signified that the president's words are belied by his actions. Robin, Michael Gerson, writing in the Washington Post, suggests that Obama's vision expressed in 2008, that this was the place where America remembered what it means to hope, has turned instead to declining trust in government and political polarization. How do you see the Obama presidency?
Well, first of all, I think the State of the Union address, I heard echoes of Jimmy Carter and the great national melees. It just sounded like, well, I tried to change it, but, not so much. The thing is, Obama came in with the idea that he was going to change Washington. No one changes Washington. No one. The only way to get anything done is to do it the way Washington does it. And Obama fought that, and it created problems. He's done some good things, but many of the problems that we've had with the government not working and Congress not working have to do with his deciding to change Washington.
Henry, do you agree with Robin? What's going to be the president's legacy?
Okay, first of all, he didn't really come in trying to change Washington. He came in to try to work to bring the two sides together, to come up with some positive things to come out of Congress. And you saw from the beginning, from his first speech, when you get a heckler, in the State of the Union, which never happened before, you can understand, well, we can see what things are going to happen down in the future. And they come true. He had to fight for everything that he tried to do. Now, Obama has turned the economy around.
But isn't that what politics is about? The tension between the parties?
No, not necessarily, because you've had presidents that have had some good compromises with Congress and have not come out and blatantly, slap them in the face, and none of them have come out with some kind of policy saying, okay, this is Obamacare, when it's the Affordable Health Care Act. And they did that blatantly just to try to knock it down. So, we can talk for days about that, but he inherited an economy that was going in the tubes, turned it around, okay? We are now 5% unemployment, which is unheard of. We have turned the auto industry around where they're really very prosperous now. This is their best year.
We heard this on Tuesday night. I got to go to Elbridge. I don't want you just repeating.
Well, you asked him about the legacy, which is true.
The Washington Post stated that President Obama used his bully pulpit to preach about the faults in the political system, but offered up the prospect that lawmakers can actually bridge the political divide and surprise the cynics. Is he correct?
I think so, and let me explain why. Because you have a lessening of the effect or the polarizing effect of the Tea Party. You have a leader in the House now who has told his party, we're not going to play those shenanigans that plagued the last Speaker of the House. So in fact, there is the opportunity for a divided government to have some greater conversation. I mean, that's just the reality.
All right, Phil, what's your view on the president's legacy?
Well, his legacy will be one of a failing, falling, collapsing facade. Because we've gone through several years of hearing things such as, well, the auto industry is great, it's terrific. Is it really great? Can you tell me it's a great industry when you have autos made in so few locations, the new Camaro, which is an American icon made in St. Teresa, Ontario, but yet he's saying the auto industry is great. He's saying that college is going to be free for 2 years. It's going to be free because the people going to those colleges getting worthless degrees are going to be paying a lot more in taxes so that they have those worthless degrees that they can take to get another one.
This is what I love
That's
about
a
this
failed
show,
facade.
because it really shows in a microcosm the differences that exist in our country right now. There is a great divide on in the political spectrum between how we view this president and our government. It's really kind of fascinating to watch. No one here has agreed on anything yet.
Well, wait a minute. Do you think
mean,
that
facts
this
are
same
facts.
body here would think that Ronald Reagan was a great president? I think we'd have that same conversation about Ronald Reagan or George the First Bush. I think all four of us would agree about the second Bush. But on the first Bush, we might have a difference of
Well,
opinion.
but I mean, just even as to the causes of the divide, there is we have admitted that there is a divide. But as to the causes of the divide, Henry, there are those who say that calling a meeting and having Paul Ryan deliberately sit in the front row of the congressional delegation and then being attacked from the podium by President Obama was the first shot. So, you know, it's a chicken and an egg situation. Where does the fault lie and where does the blame lie? We're going to find out as this election season goes along.
Yes,
we got to roll.
Yes, we will.
Well, stay tuned for Pardon Shots.
Yes, we will.
Viking, Packer, Viking, Packer, Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
And welcome back. Now with Parting Shots, Henry Hailstock.
Governor Hogan, look at this one thing. You have a family, you have grandkids. Think about education. If you start cutting education, not allowing us to get the cream of the crop for teaching and bringing out the right things and not having these false degrees coming out of the schools where they go on and still have false education, we're going to have a big problem here in the United States, not to mention Maryland itself. So let's look at not cutting education, but in increasing the funding so we can have good education.
Thank you, Henry. Phil Bell.
Well, a few months ago, an airline with a single jet started flying. And what's so significant about that is that airline's name is Eastern, and it heralded the return of the legendary Eastern Airlines. Folks in this area will remember flying the shuttle going up to New York and to Boston. So it's nice to see they're back, even if they're only just flying to Cuba right now. And I'm looking forward to getting a ticket.
I thought you were a train guy.
I am.
Robin Uncapher, your Parting Shot.
On the way over here, I read a short article that we are missing 12 United States Marines who have apparently been killed by a helicopter crash near Hawaii. My own son was stationed in Hawaii as a United States Marine, and my heart goes out to the parents, the families of all of these Marines. It's just a terrible thing.
Thank you, Robin. Elbridge James, your Parting Shot.
My parting shot goes to Ted Cruz. You don't speak about any part of the country in such bad language as you did in New York City and the people of New York City. I am, for once, had to applaud whatever his name is, Trump. I can't think about it. For standing up for the people of New York City.
It hurts you to say that, didn't it? It hurts you to say that.
It hurt me. But I condemn Cruz. You're not ready if you're going to condemn a section of the country.
Well, we're fast approaching the first of the primaries in Iowa and New Hampshire, and it's interesting that the polls have changed a great deal over the last several weeks, and they're seriously going to change in the weeks ahead. We're going to have fun watching these things as they change, and I'm going to make a prediction. Hillary Clinton is going to lose Iowa, and she's going to lose New Hampshire, and she's going to be really, really scared. And then my two Democratic colleagues sitting here are going to turn green when they think they have Bernie Sanders as the Republican nominee.
Democratic nominee.
The Democratic nominee. I want to thank the panel for being here. We've had a great discussion. You can see that there's passion in everything we say, but we still enjoy and respect one another. I want to thank the audience for tuning in to the hardest hitting political talk show in Montgomery County. And don't forget, you got to like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. And a recap version of early editions of this are posted on YouTube. So for 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.
Go Nats.